On YouTube, guys. Give me a moment. Recording is there. Start the webinar.
So now I've got to find my agenda.
We're live.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties getting in. So I've got to go find my agenda here. So give me just 1 second. I had it open, but I had to close it during all of that. So let me pull it up. Here it is. All right. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Roll call, Tony Beardsley.
Nate
Sarah
Price.
Riley.
Adrian Jackson.
Richard Burrows.
Jeff Honeycutt.
Howard Alstor.
All right. We've got a quorum. So let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand up and face wherever there's a flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Next on the agenda, comments from the public. Any comments from the public? I guess not. All right, then we've got the consent agenda to approve. Has everybody had a chance? I know we didn't get it until yesterday afternoon, but has everybody had a chance to review it? And does anybody have any questions around the consent agenda, which would be the financials, the approve the minutes from last month, and then the enrollment report? Anybody have any questions, comments?
Tony, actually, the second half of the minutes went out this afternoon. The first,
yes. Thank you. Yes, that's right. So has everybody had a chance to review it and feel comfortable? I do have one question, and this is directed to Howard and Nate, the finance committee. I know you met yesterday, didn't have a quorum. Was there anything that you guys discussed that we need to know? Everything looked good?
We went ahead and met. It was Richard, myself, and Bonnie. I believe Debbie was there as well.
Yes.
There was nothing out of the ordinary that was presented. Everything looked good.
Okay. All right. So I will move for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I got a first and a second. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion passed. So we'll move on to agenda item number 6, which is yes.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. We have someone on chat saying, Melissa Wilkins saying, I have some comments from the public.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and hear that. Sorry, I didn't hear anybody speak up.
No, we have to allow them to do so. I don't think we've had them. We actually did have a registration. I'm sorry. There was one that caught up at this moment. Melissa Wilkins, hold on just a minute. Let me get her so she can speak. There she is, allowed to talk. All right, Melissa, you're allowed to speak.
Sorry about that, Melissa. Did not realize we had somebody out there, but go right ahead. You have 3 minutes. As far as public comments go, you get 3 minutes and go whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you so much. I have a couple concerns and questions about the decision for the school to hire a felon that is still serving a sentence to be a special education teacher. Some of the questions are, why did the school hire someone who stole $100,000s of dollars from people in our community? Someone who just got out of prison 13 months ago and is still finishing his sentence. Does he have a degree, licensure for special education, and any experience teaching in special education? Was a proper search done to find a candidate who is qualified, including reaching out to local community colleges, other colleges, University of Arkansas, anything to see if any students who are graduating very recently or soon would be available? Also, what private information of our children will he have access to, including social security numbers, address, date of birth? Does the board have any concerns that Walmart and other large donors will be turned off by this direct decisions? Ethically, why should someone who intentionally hurt our community for years now be teaching the most vulnerable population of students? Also, statistically, within 3 years of their release, 2 out of 3 people who are rearrested and more than 50% are incarcerated again. With such a high recidivism rate, what is the school doing to ensure that he will not fall back into that incarceration risk? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Mhm. So Richard, would you like to address any of this? Now, this is a personnel matter, so we are very limited on what we can say. But I'll let Richard give a general response to that if you could, Richard.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I guess the quick on this is that we did a very complete search for eligible candidates. And as a public charter, we're always challenged by qualified people who are willing and interested to work for less salary than public schools offer. We were happy to have I will say, to have this individual apply for the position because he was quite qualified. The candidate passed all of the requisite requirements for being employed in a public school district in Arkansas, in that all criminal behavior was revealed on the application. The FBI and state and other authorizing agencies had cleared him for service, and that he in fact had provided all information in interviews about his particular status. Being a felon is not a complete disregardment for being employed in the state of Arkansas. While there was a 4-year sentence conveyed, 20 months were served, a fine was assessed, and there is no evidence of the criminal behavior after this. When we have an opportunity during executive session to talk about other issues, I can say that there is a unanimous opinion by the faculty at the school that he works at that he is a fine person, a fine candidate, and they support him entirely for his employment, and that there is no worry or risk in his assignment in this particular position. So that's really the basic information. I might ask Principal Wright if she has anything she'd like to add to that.
Not really. I mean, you've covered everything. Having observed him in the classroom and working with his peers, it's clear that he's a gifted educator. He's good at engaging with students and making them feel excited about the curriculum that they're learning. He's supportive of his peers and helping them understand how to reach our most vulnerable populations and support them in the classroom. He's part of a Boundless Learning co-teaching project and received commendations, he and his co-teacher both, for the way that they are supporting students in the classroom together. And his peers, like you said, have his back. They support him in what he's doing.
Thank you, Heather. I might add that from an educational institution point of view, we always evaluate the person, not the record. And so in that same respect, when students fail in our instructional charge, the blame is not placed on them, but really about us being able to provide them opportunities to increase their capacity. And in the same way for adults who pay their price within the justice system, we want to provide people the opportunity to move forward and to be productive citizens in this life. So until we have an opportunity to have this conversation with an executive session, that's at least the opinion that we have from the district and from my point of view. Thank you.
All right. So we're going to move on with agenda item number 6. District report and superintendent comments, spring semester schedule logistics. Richard?
Thanks. I think we're going to leave the schedule and logistics conversation to Principal Wright's presentation for the high school, since she has the most information. We talked about that in some great extent. I only have 2 things that I would like to share before I turn it over to staff for conversation. According to my work plan with the board of directors, I ensured that I would conduct a survey with teachers about their professional development needs. And that survey has been shared with both the elementary and high school staff. It has about 20 items on it, asking for what they consider to be the most beneficial to the least beneficial in terms of their particular experiences. The high school staff has filled out a monkey survey, which will allow for a much more detailed evaluation. I'm looking forward to that. I did a hand analysis of the elementary teachers, and I just thought this might be an interesting perspective for the board about what the elementary teachers shared. And my apologies, Matt, that I wasn't able to share this with you before 5:30 when I was still crunching these numbers, but it was just a very interesting prospect to listen to the elementary teachers about what they consider to be important, all things good. So a score of 4 or 5 among elementary teachers indicates those things that they consider to be most important. And number 4 was, there were a number of items. One is that they wanted to know more about being able to do in-class assessments, which is really the formative kind of work that has to do with how do you look at a student in the process of instruction. It's not the summative assessments, which are the tests that occur at the end. The other was alternative learning strategies, and how perfect for an arts academy where we have a variety of students who come with a variety of skills and abilities. So the opportunity to be able to develop different ways for helping students to succeed. And then really quite admirably, I was glad to see the staff said that they wanted to have more training in diversity so that they could actually help students in the place that they are. Number 5, which is the highest expectation from elementary staff. Again, I'm just like thrilled that they would make this particular commitment. As good teachers, they were particularly focused on, please help me be able to deliver the content of my instruction more effectively. So more training in what it is that I teach, helping me to be a more effective teacher. And I thought this was interesting. That spanned everything from the first-year teacher to the 18-year veteran. There's always new things to learn. Third was data-driven instruction, their ability to look at what students' success information provides them and how they can provide individual support as well as classroom support. I thought there were a couple of comments that I thought were really great about curriculum development. One of the teachers said at the elementary level, I don't need training, I just need time. So I think that's something that Matt and I will have as a conversation about how do we provide teachers time to do that work. And then finally, and this is so expected in this current environment of COVID, is they just needed to have additional help in being able to provide virtual or distance learning through the technology. So that's no surprise. Last, and I'll try to be quick and brief here, is that we got some information from the state about the ESSER 2 funding, which is the elementary and secondary school relief funds. This is sort of like COVID-2 as well as other kinds of opportunities. And most of it appears to be still the same, but there are a few things that revealed themselves as being particularly usable by us as a district. One is to develop programs after this first year of COVID that help to solve the learning loss problems in education. So that's everything from virtual learning doesn't work particularly well for some students to a variety of other kinds of opportunities. Another is preparing schools to start the new school year in what we've learned from COVID, and we have some ideas about how that might be particularly appropriate. And then gratefully, we are allowed to use funds from ESSER 2 to upgrade facilities to improve the air quality in school buildings so that our students and faculty, visitors and staff are well protected. And so at the elementary as well as high school, we have a number of items that could help us to improve that particular opportunity. So that's just a couple of things from my end of the world. And I'll turn the next part over, if that's all right, Tony, to Debbie to talk about the child nutrition report.
Good evening, everyone. Not a lot to report. I did want to make a comment about the spreadsheet for our finances. The federal government did not release funds for my November or December claims, or anybody in the state's claims, until this week. So we will be receiving about $52,000 from them. Right now, the spreadsheet shows we're about $13,000 in the hole, and that's only because we haven't gotten our November and December claim paid yet. But everyone in the state is in the same boat as we are. So that is the only information I really have. I'm working on finishing up the refunds for the COVID meals that were charged during the first couple of weeks of school. As far as let's see, cycle reporting, we won't have anything due this month. The next one will be due mid-February. So that's pretty much all I have. Any questions?
No, I did see that negative, so it's good to know that we've got the funds coming in to cover that. That's great.
One other quick comment is that our reimbursement for November was $23,000, and our reimbursement for December ended up being almost $27,000, and that's because we're doing more weekend meals for students in need.
That's great. All right, that's great. All right, before we move on, I want to jump back to the school board professional development and talk about that a little bit. That is just, I want to make sure that everybody is aware, all the board members, the new board members, you have to get in 9 hours. I do have a little spreadsheet, and Debbie can share what you need. If I'm reading it right, we've got a few that do need to get some additional hours. So if it's a negative, that means they need hours, correct?
That is correct.
All right.
And most people are in really good shape.
Yeah.
We have till the end of this calendar year to finish these hours.
So there'll be a lot of opportunities over the next, 10, 11, 12 months to get these hours in. Just make sure that we do, because it is a state law now. I think I started last year that if you don't have your hours by the end of January, you're kind of put on probation. Then you have until the end of January to do it. If you don't have it by then you're removed from the board. So just make sure that you get these in.
I think that Debbie shared around with the board members that there were some new opportunities that were available through some legal issues for board members. Is that correct, Debbie? You shared that?
I did not get that out today, but I will be getting it out to them tomorrow about some online legal training for board members. Mm-hmm.
That's great. And having been on the board for as long as I have, I recommend to the new board members, take everything you can, especially in those first 3 years that you're on the board. The more you know, the easier it gets. I mean, that's just my advice there. All right, so we're going to move on now to COVID status.
Katie.
Hey, so I have some new information. There was an announcement this afternoon by the governor. So I'll go over that towards the very end. I'll start with our COVID numbers. Currently, we have, up to date, we've had 62 cases. We currently have 8 active cases and 35 in quarantine. I don't want our quarantine numbers to reflect poorly on our practices. 10 of our students that are in quarantine, it was because they were exposed at an after-school program. We only had one close contact from that case on our campus, but then when we notified the after-school program, there were 10 more students. So I just wanted to make sure that I shared that, because our teachers are very diligent with social distancing in classrooms when that space is available, reminding kids to wear their masks appropriately, and hand washing. I'll move on to quarantine. In early December, the CDC released alternative guidance for quarantining that allowed for shortened quarantine timelines. I continued to advise 14 days of quarantine as it's the safest option. However, as the semester began and I began processing new cases, I was having to tell families that their student had to quarantine for the second or third time. Multiple quarantines are creating financial and academic challenges for some of our families. So the following guidelines for quarantine will be followed. The 14-day quarantine is still one of the options. 10-day quarantine with no symptoms, and then a 7-day quarantine with no symptoms with a negative test at day 5. And students and staff will have to provide us with a negative test result before they'll be allowed back on campus. So I'm hoping that helps to create a balance with our families. Maribel and I have started testing staff. The Department of Health sent schools rapid antigen tests to begin screening staff. It's a little frustrating because rapid tests are not indicated for screening. They're indicated for testing people who have symptoms of COVID-19. But like with everything else, we're just rolling with it. So we have so far run 16 tests since the 5th of January, all of which have come back negative. And then the last note I have, our governor announced this afternoon that next week he would begin allowing parts of phase 1B to begin vaccinations. I sent an email this afternoon to all of our staff requesting response for those that are interested in receiving the COVID vaccine. There are a few pharmacies in the area that I will reach out to tomorrow morning. One in particular that looks like you can sign up as a group. So I'm hoping that they would come to our site and potentially do kind of like a flu clinic kind of situation. So we could get everybody that's interested vaccinated at one time.
So let me interject there, Katie.
Sure.
We had a district-wide administrative staff meeting this morning, and one of the things that we wanted to do, which I thought was really interesting, that at 4:30 when we got the information from the state very late in the afternoon, they said, make sure that you survey your staff and employees so that you know ahead of time who is interested in taking the vaccine. And for whatever reason, if they're interested in exemptions from that particular effort, whether it's religious or being disabled or other kinds of concerns from their physicians. So I think one of the things we want to do is make sure that we have good information across the 120 employees in our district about how many are we looking at in terms of being able to produce a plan. And then you and I will sit down sometime in the next couple of days to figure out what the architecture or the arc of that looks like to ensure the easiest way for staff to be able to get their vaccines. Every district is being sort of relegated to figure out their own process for this. That's challenging. I can say that it's maybe a little easier for us as a school district with as small a staff. It's going to be pretty challenging for other school districts which are larger. But I think the board should understand that we're really competing with vaccines in the arms with people who have much larger numbers of people who need that than us. So we need to be ready to go as soon as we're available. Yep.
Sounds good.
Can I make a comment about these tests that we have received at the school?
Sure.
Okay, so rapid antigen testing is very, very not sensitive for people who are not impressively ill. So my opinion would be that if someone is having, significant symptoms, they should go home and call their doctor for the PCR. Or if you decide to do a rapid antigen test on them at the school and it's negative, but they have symptoms, they should have to follow it up with a PCR and stay home until they get that done. Because I've been testing a lot of people, getting lots of positives, and I've had people who are floridly ill, impressively sick with a negative rapid antigen and a positive PCR. So
Anyone that has had symptoms has been advised to stay at home, or obtain a PCR test. The Natural State Laboratories is where I've been sending people. But that's why it was frustrating, because the rapid is not meant for what they are asking us to use it for.
Right. So, okay. I figured, good, we're on the same page, because to me, it's not a very useful thing for you to have.
All right. Any other questions, any comments around the COVID status? All right, well then we're going to move on to our school updates. And up first tonight is the fabulous Mr. Young with the elementary update.
Thank you, President Beardsley. We have a few things going on at the K-6 campus. First of all, we have our K2 testing window is open for our students. That's the iReady assessment. For kindergarten through second grade students, they take 3 tests throughout the years. And that's how we look at their growth and their accountability piece for the state. So that is just got going. As far as changes, we made some modifications to our virtual options to start this second semester. Some things that our virtual students will notice is that now there's a daily teaching component from a live teacher. We got a lot of feedback that's what a lot of kids were missing. So we've added that in. We've also added another option for the virtual piece. A lot of students weren't comfortable with the Lincoln Learning format for various reasons. So we have another program called iReady that we'll be utilizing with them. And then the third option we're now offering also is a paper packet. Some students, due to technology issues, they just think they're being overwhelmed by technology in their home, are going to respond better, they think, to a paper packet. So we've set up a system for that. The other thing too is we've also added social times for all our virtual students on a weekly basis for each grade level. That was the other piece of feedback, and Ms. Shover is working with the virtual teachers to provide a little more social and emotional learning for this group. The other thing we're working on is we've had a couple of spots come open in various grade level. So we're working off our waiting list and filling those. The difficult piece is when we have people with siblings, they want both to come at the same time. And usually that's not the way it works. You know, we might have an opening in this grade, but not that grade. So we're working on that. And upcoming things would definitely be preparing for the lottery and thinking about how we can get the word out there. It's much more difficult this year when we don't have the big performances going on. And you know, last year, Ms. Wright helped set up with Root Ed for us to have live tours with them and to have these open moments so people can see what we do and what we're about. So trying to get the word out and get our lottery numbers up. Any questions?
Well, we did, Matt, for both elementary and secondary, produce an English and Spanish flyer to send out to community members, both printed and digital. So I'll make sure that all the board members get a digital copy of that. So in your coming and going, if there are folks that you see need to have this information for the open enrollment, you should send it along. And as you know, every year there's 80 spots at kindergarten available. So we want to make sure those get filled.
Sure. All right. Thank you, Mr. Young. All right, we're going to move on to the high school and Ms. Wright.
Thank you. I actually have a presentation that I'm going to share about the 3 different learning options that we're offering this year. But I did want to say that after the first 4 days, of moving to a new in-person learning format. One, we're still seeing distancing between 4 and 6 feet in the classrooms and in the commons areas in the PAC. And students are doing a good job of moving quickly from class to class, and teachers are out in the hallway getting them to move. So there's not a lot of standing around and congregating time. But the building feels different. So there's a sense of joy and purpose again. I think we kind of lost that at the end of last semester, with students spending a lot of time in those large study hall sessions. And we've got that back. There was art going on today. There was socially distanced dancing going on today. Everyone seemed to be a little bit more upbeat. So I'm going to share my presentation. Oh, I got to get to the right board. Okay. So these are the 3 learning options that we've moved to. I did take pictures of the building today, but they never got from my phone to my computer. They're still trying to load into my drive. Apologize for the words. That was not my intent. So our first option is in-person learning. That looks a little bit different in that students are reporting to the school building all 5 days and following their bell schedule, moving from class to class. Masks are required while they're in the building. Students are between 4 and 6 feet distanced, sometimes more, depending on how many children are in the classroom. And seating charts are used to track those contacts. Students eat in either the commons, the courtyard, or the PAC. There are 4 students to a 6-foot table, and all tables and chairs are sanitized between lunches. Every Monday and Thursday is an A day, and every Tuesday and Friday is a B day. Wednesdays, we run a fast schedule with all 8 courses. And this is to aid our adjuncts and the part-time people that we have who need a much more consistent schedule, and still maintain the same amount of time in every class. We do request substitutes as needed to cover teacher absences in quarantine. And when we can't get a sub, we sometimes have time or sometimes have space in study hall, in the library, and then sometimes Miss Rachel and I, or Miss Carpenter and I, end up being substitutes. Our second setting is the synchronous virtual learning setting. So these students are connecting with their classrooms through Google Classroom and through Google Meet during the day. So if at 8:30, they're connecting with their first period class and their first period teacher. The teachers are delivering all the direct instruction and hosting the classroom discussions. I do this with my community service and leadership class as well. And then once that direct instruction is ended, they release the virtual students to work on their independent work and continue the independent work of students who are in the classroom. So that means that students are still following and engaging with students in the classroom. Our last setting is the asynchronous virtual setting. So this is for students who, because their parents are working at home and they can't access the network, or because of something else that's going on at home, they're not able to connect during the school day. So in the asynchronous setting, you're using Lincoln Learning. They'll have their classes assigned. We actually have hit a technological hiccup here. They were supposed to be populated and ready to go today, and that didn't happen. So we're hoping overnight that will happen. But they will have the entire semester's work available for the classes that they're signed up for. And then they will be able to work through that. My suggestion, or the progress that they need to make, is the completion of a lesson a day in order to finish on time. They can, of course, work faster than that. Then I will be progress monitoring and checking in on them once a week for students who are not progressing as they should. We end up having a conference to determine whether this is the best setting for that student, or perhaps they need something different or additional supports in order to be successful. One of the things that we really struggled with at the high school was attendance record keeping and where students were. We would frequently have students who just decided to be virtual for a day. They were listed as in-person students, but they would end up choosing to be virtual. That leads to issues with preparation as far as teachers, because a lot of them have slightly different materials for their virtual students than they do for their in-person students, because those virtual students are at home. And so then we end up with a student who's not able to engage in the same way because they're not in the place that we expected them to be. The asynchronous students can still choose to participate in select classes synchronously. A lot of the AP students and students who are truly passionate about their arts chose that. And then those who want to be completely asynchronous can be enrolled in general arts classes. So those are our 3 settings. Are there any questions about the 3?
So Heather, this is Richard. You have, what is it, about 78 students in the asynchronous program?
Yeah, we have about 80 after today. We're still following up. We have about 13 students who still haven't told us what they want to do. So we have about 80 as of today who are enrolled asynchronously.
And those are under your stewardship
Yes.
in terms of their success. So I guess my question or my comment to the board would be that because a student and or parents have decided that they're going to work asynchronously, it's not necessarily the best success program for them. And how will you work with them to help them understand that there might be a better choice?
How will I work with them?
Yeah.
Well, first, just pointing out the level of help that is available in those different settings. And there are already some parents that I've reached out to and that teachers have reached out to and said, you know, this is really not maybe the best setting for your student. Is there a reason that we can't do virtual synchronous? You know, they have to be really self-motivated and driven to be successful in that setting. And so we've had some people decide to change to virtual synchronous or even to being in person. So, you know, sometimes when you give choices, people make choices that aren't the best for them. But we've been reaching out to those that we feel like should probably be in a different setting. And then I'll be tracking them weekly and holding those conferences and you know, helping make sure that parents understand the opportunities that the other options provide.
So in this case where we're trying to help or trying to suggest to parents and students that this is the plan you're going to be under, if they discover that what it is that they've selected is not the right choice, is it easy enough to move to the next choice?
It is. I require a conference with me at this point because last semester we kind of allowed parents to just tell us when they were changing, and those changes became daily, like daily emails of 20 children who were changing what they were doing, and then a week later would change again, and that's really difficult to keep track of and really difficult to help students be successful in if there's no consistency in their pattern, in their any structure in their schedule. So they will come in with a conference for me. And once we change it to something that has more structure and more engagement, like we're not going backwards. So if you're moving from asynchronous to synchronous, like we're not going to decide a week later to go back to asynchronous.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Wright. Appreciate that. Looks like we have a student council update.
Diego is actually not here tonight.
Okay. All right. So we're going to skip it. I didn't see him, but I want to make sure. All right. So in that case, we're going to move on to, and I'll use the same terms, the fabulous Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Boy, so good to see you guys. Unfortunately, I missed the last one. I could not be there. I'm so sorry. Everyone looked refreshed. I hope they had a wonderful holiday. I'm sure they did, especially those parents who have 7th graders, because you got bath bombs, right? I mean, just look at Mr. Young. His wall is together. He glows. It was great. I hope you all enjoyed it. We did finish the semester very, very strong. The last week, we had the My School, My Museum, the collaboration that we have with Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art. So we had 2 museum educators now that are working with our 6th and 4th grade. So the end of the semester, we ended with the 6th grade. It was a really, really great project that Ann Wenzel and myself, she's at the high school, but she's also working part-time with Arts Integration, kind of worked with the teachers and then brought in the museum educators. And that was called the Energetic Platonic Solids. So if you've been to Crystal Bridges and as you're driving in, you see that great big dodecahedron that has all the lights on it by Leo Villarreal. It's called Buckyball. It looks like a pregnant soccer ball. That's what we kind of focused on because they were looking at for mathematics to find area and perimeter of geometric solids. So we ended up having them do some pretty interesting geometric forms, cutting out little windows so they find the area and the perimeter, and then they have to subtract by making this three-dimensional cube or shape. And then in the science, they were learning all different kinds of energy. So we were able to secure a lot of LED lighting and incorporate that into the platonic solids so that with a click of the button, it would light up. And so we worked with the 6th grade to be able to kind of have a couple of really cool studio times to get that kind of ended up, and it looked fabulous. And so I will highlight these things. If you want to go to the Arkansas Arts Academy website, click Explore, go down to Arts Integration. We have a website and we have all kinds of things that are featured there that you'll kind of see. So we're going to start the semester again with the My School, My Museum. So now it's the 4th grade. So we're actually meeting this week. 4th grade will produce a lesson for January, and then February goes to 6th grade, then March, and it kind of flips. So it's just 4 more times. So that's where we're kind of starting with. And that's about all of the arts integration that's happening. But really quick, Mr. Richard Burrows had contacted me last week and came across an article or something, I'm not sure what it was. He said, there's this new kind of technology, this artificial intelligence using kind of holographic QR coding. It might be something we want to kind of look into. Could you kind of check it out? So I did, and this is what it is. Boom. This is a paper cube. So they do have a really, really cool plastic one. This is kind of the ones that they kind of give to you to see if you are interested in it. And a whole bunch of wonderful kind of curriculum and different kinds of things happen with it. So you're kind of looking at it and kind of going, I don't know what that is. That looks very strange, Jones. What are you talking about? Well, you download on your phone the app. And as you kind of put this in, and I hope this kind of works out really well, you put it here. Can you kind of see that? And then the cube, boom.
Ooh.
Look at that. That's what I thought. It becomes kind of this holographic. Now, you're saying, okay, that's kind of a cool little effect. You can kind of turn it however you want. Each one of the planets can be pulled out, blown up, and also kind of looked at, and a lot of information is shared. Then at the very end, there is a quiz for elementary, middle school, or high school, to which everybody can kind of take a quiz and learn those basics into whatever. Each one of these licenses, you know, there are some that are free, there are some that you pay a little bit for, but they're working with us right now of looking at some different things, from whether it be a school class 30 cubes or for a school-wide opportunity of license, which there isn't a big price difference between the two. So Richard and I are still kind of talking about it. We're waiting to get one of the solid ones to kind of come in, but it does look very, very promising, especially for students who are working virtually, or we have a number of different populations that I think would benefit from it. Richard, I didn't know if you wanted to kind of chime in a little bit more information that you knew about it.
Well, the only thing is that it's for sale at Walmart.
Yes, it is.
So aside from just that wonderful solar system visual that Aaron shared, there's any number of other kinds of applications. Things like the human body, you can pull out the brain and it will give you information about the brain or about your lungs. You can hold an actual bird in your hand and turn it around so that you can take a look at it from all different sides. So a couple of applications here. One is it really does help make the virtual experience more lively. You can look at it through your phone or through your laptop. And the other is that Beth Scott said this about our special education students. What a great opportunity to inspire them to think and understand differently about our particular programs. It just something I stumbled onto, and who knew that it would be for sale at Walmart? Gee whiz. In fact, the standard price is about $15 to $16 per cube, and Walmart's selling them for $1. Hello. So it wouldn't take much to have the entire population be involved in this work. So thanks, Aaron, for your work.
Welcome.
That's great.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. All right, special education.
Beth was out today. She didn't have any updates. She says they're still working on all of their deadlines, and they're in good schedule. So nothing to report new.
All right. Mr. Skelton, I don't see him online, so I'm assuming that's you, Mr. Young, giving us a athletics update.
Yes, Mr. Skelton apologizes. He's in beautiful Flippin, Arkansas tonight, home of Ranger Boats, for our junior high boys and junior high boys, high school boys basketball game. Basketball season is almost over, ends at the beginning of February. So it's been a strong season, lots of opportunities to learn about different places in Arkansas for some of our kids, and also to learn how a pandemic affects schedules. Because pretty much every week something has been affected schedule-wise. So the junior high girls did get their first victory in the history of their program in a conference, and they were ecstatic, and they took lots of pictures. So there's lots of evidence of that win, historically speaking. And archery season is coming up. Archery is a sport that has definitely been affected by COVID. This year, our competitions are all going to be held at our own gym, and we report the scores to the state to see how far we qualify. So we will have our school tournament January 30th, and then we will have our regional competition February 11th. That evening, our kids will get to come in and shoot, and then we will know at the end of that week if we qualify for state. So a lot of honor system going on with archery, and which is definitely unique. But we have 3 full teams, and Coach Green last year did lead 2 of the teams to qualify for nationals. If it hadn't been for COVID, we'd had 2 teams in in Louisville, Kentucky. And then soccer season will be coming up in March.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Young. So new business, staff emergency contact tree. Richard?
Well, so you think that technology is the best thing in the world, right? So we have a weather day, and we say to the schools, so sorry, it's bad weather. You need to revert to virtual right away. And then as soon as we switch over to virtual, Google goes down, and there's no Gmail, and there's no way for any of the students or teachers to access online. And I was on my cell phone. I was trying to I couldn't send email because Google was down. I mean, it was just, and trying to call people, and it was 4:30 in the morning, and it really just sort of like this tragic set of errors that couldn't be more Shakespearean. And so the staff and I sat down and said, let's figure out a contact tree that starts at the top and sort of spreads down, so that from my point of view, that I'm trying to find ways to connect with Tony or with the board so they know what's going on. I talk to the signature people at the central staff, and then that moves down to principals, and who do the principals contact? So instead of trying to get information out to 120 people, just by trying to figure out how to use your cell phone, that the emergency contact tree allows us to have a much more formalized system, whether you're using your phone or smoke signals or driving to people's houses to try and get the information out. It was so difficult that day without Gmail to be able to get this information out. So we think we're a little bit more prepared. Debbie is doing the yeoman duty here and trying to create the chart so that it makes good sense. And when we're done with that, we'll share that with the board as well.
That's great. Reminds me of the old times when you had the call trees. Yes.
I have it drafted out. I'll be sending it out tomorrow to get it approved by the principals and the parties involved.
Yeah.
Just FYI, Richard, I did have a fire on my lawn ready for smoke signals.
And I do have a burn pile in my back in the back of our yard. If you need to, I can light it also.
Yeah, I think those lawn chair cushions are really good smoke makers.
All right, so moving on, discussion of items since publication of the agenda. And we do have one that was brought up today. And I just sent an email to the board members. It's about 2 new positions, or 1 position growing in scope and then 1 new position. So Richard, if you'd like I said, I've emailed that to the board. So you'll take a look. You've got the descriptions of the new positions. Richard, would you like to give an overview?
Yeah, so I'll make a quick presentation on that, and then we'll follow up with Taryn's presentation on the mental health emergency. So 2 things. When Debbie Zupan was hired as an administrative assistant, there were some very specific things that were listed in her job description. When the organization contracted in terms of numbers of employees, she took on a great deal of new responsibilities that are absolutely critical to the organization. You know, Debbie, you can put your fingers in your ears. You don't have to listen to this part. Okay, thanks. So when we took a look at her additional job responsibilities, it was clear that what she was doing for us was outside the capped limit of her current position, which is at $36,758. And so we, Terry Harrell and I took a look at the salary schedules for the district and realized that she really was functioning more at a coordinator level. And so I would like to propose increasing her salary and her title to administrative services coordinator. And when we took a look at what the additional services that she was providing, it would be annually $6,863 of increased salary. And for this year, it would be half of that because we're only talking about a half-year commitment. But it's an acknowledgement that Debbie is the glue that keeps us together in the office. She's the person who's there all the time. No matter what the call is that comes in, she's pleasant and helpful, but she really has the background and information. So this is not so much a conversation about Debbie's service as much as it is about this is the kind of job that is required to do this work. So I'll ask if there's any questions about that before I move on to the second one. And by the way, we do have funding to cover that for this year. Tony?
There we go. We will have, as the board, have to approve these changes. So just FYI. So go ahead, Richard, with if there's not any questions.
Okay. So the second one is, again, this was part of the contraction of the district at the beginning of this year. I have proposed a new position called Information Data Manager. And this is a person who would help with a variety of things. The Special Education 504 data entry, the Medicaid RMAC data entry, child nutrition data entry, and other Title I reports that are part of the budget requirements for the district. What's important about this is that it is a kind of a mindset kind of job, in that when you're into this kind of very detailed reporting, it's the kind of thing that you need to be involved in a detailed sort of way, rather than this is a kind of pull-out reporting that I need to do, spend a lot of time doing it, which is what staff does, and then get in the car and drive to a meeting to assist students or to develop other kinds of opportunities. When Bonnie Colville and I looked at this particular position, which has a cap of no more than 42,000, we think we can find someone who's capable of doing this job for less than less than that, in fact, that 80% of, oh, hi, Bonnie, that 80% of the position could be funded federally. And I think that it gives us an opportunity to relieve some of the stress on staff, that the position itself has a return revenue of about $185,000 in terms of accurate reporting to these agencies, which seems like good time on task to make sure that we're doing the right thing at the right time and making sure that the rest of our staff is doing the kinds of work that they need to do with students and teachers. Anything you want to add to that, Bonnie?
I think it is a good idea. That way, like you said, the people who need to be in the classrooms can be in the classrooms, talking to the teachers and getting their input instead of doing so much paperwork.
Yeah.
And typically most schools do have a Medicaid clerk, you know, and a federal programs coordinator, which, you know, right now we don't have, but this could help alleviate some of those additional duties that take you out of where you need to be focusing on the students themselves.
And Bonnie, the funding for this comes out of federal funding, correct?
About 80% of it could be. It may be more, just depending on how the duties are, you know, divvied out when it happens. But at least 80% of it could be paid from federal funds, which is good because, you know, we have a requirement to spend 85% of our federal funds on the most part anyway. So that's money that is not going to be coming out of the operating budget, which is a good thing.
So those are the updates and the new positions that I would like to propose to the board. And Tony, it's really up to you to decide how we should move forward here. Let the board think about it or move forward. Yeah.
I would like to go ahead and entertain a motion to change the job responsibilities for Debbie along with her salary so we can get moving forward on that. Is there any discussion from any of the board members around that position?
Question, maybe Bonnie can help answer this. Do we have to recreate a position or can we modify this one? And if there is an increase associated with this, does it impact the maximum amount of an increase somebody can get that we have to report out on?
I don't understand your question. I'm sorry.
So I think I might be able to answer that. It is
put it in blonde terms for me.
So let me say that it is a new position based upon Debbie's original position as administrative assistant. And we've moved it to a new salary schedule because her current salary schedule is capped out at her current salary. And so we're really considering offering her a new position with that increased amount. And then at the end of the year, we evaluate where we are before we approve the budget for next year.
Okay, good. I just have it in the back of my mind that if you give somebody I can't remember what the maximum percentage of an increase is, then we have to report that to the state.
But it's reported in that Act 1120 that Terry presents to you all every year.
Okay.
And she's already done that this year. So next year it will be comparing 2021 to 21-22 school year.
Okay.
Or
I think go ahead, Bonnie, sorry.
No, so it will be reported.
Okay. I'd just rather it be a new position rather than trying to make the existing position look different.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. I think it's got a completely new job title too.
Okay. Well, then what we will need to do is I will have to entertain a motion to create the new position. And what is the title of the new position? I can't find my page here.
Administrative Services Coordinator.
To create a new position of Administration Services Coordinator. I'll entertain a motion to create that.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any further discussion on this new position? With that, I will, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those against say nay. Ayes have it, motion passed. And I have to apologize for missing the mental health emergencies thing and the guidelines for COVID. For some reason, I just went right past that. So we're going to jump back now to the mental health emergencies there for new high school.
Hey, Tony, before you jump into that, just a question or a point of order. Since we are creating this new position, do we also need to vote to remove the old position?
That's a good question. I don't know why we couldn't leave that open as far as that goes. I don't see any reason why we'd have to. But I do remember now we had that second position that we need a vote on to create.
Yeah. I think we should just leave the position on the books, but leave it as unfunded. And then depending on what our circumstances are for the next school year and the next budget, we can revisit that before we make it a final and official. Yeah.
So I think we also do need to go ahead and approve the search or approve the position of information data manager so that Richard can move forward with trying to fill that position. So any discussion around that? All right, in that case, I will entertain a motion to create the position of information data manager.
So made.
Second.
Second.
Got a first and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Ayes have it, motion passed. Now we will jump back to the mental health emergencies.
Tara.
All right.
Thanks, Tony. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Taryn Thomas. I am the 7th to 9th grade counselor at the Arts Academy. I am new, started in August, but I was there as an intern with Calvin and Megan last fall. So I created this response protocol. Does everyone have a copy of it? Did they get that this afternoon?
Yes, I do. Does everybody get it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. And we discussed it in our principals advisory committee. I had seen a lot of similar things in place at other schools that I have worked in the past and schools that I interned at before the Arts Academy, as well as at the university where I was a graduate assistant. I've seen them be extremely effective, especially when you do have staff turnover and new people coming in like we have had this year. And we've seen a huge increase in students experiencing symptoms of depression and anxiety, which is naturally going to happen when a lot of their social supports are removed and they are in isolation more often than not. And we're spending the excessive amount of time on screens that we're seeing right now. And so I just really thought it would be good to have a formal protocol in place of what to do when and if. I've seen for the Rogers School District, they have like a response flip sheet that they put in all of the rooms, no matter the grade level. And, right under tornado drill is, student has suicide ideation. And it has a list of what teachers can do and like how the school needs to handle it. So this is a little more in depth. I based this protocol off of several different examples from other school districts that have them posted on their website. So these are things that have been used and have been working for other districts in other states. The informal screening form is the very first thing. I say informal because in the mental health world, if you use any kind of substantiated assessment, it has to be done by a specific person and there are copyright laws involved. So the screening form is not meant to be an end all be all, but rather a way for a counselor or other qualified staff member to assess the situation before calling for other help. And thanks to our advisory council, we made some edits to make it a little more accessible for someone who doesn't have background in mental health. Because ideally, we would have a counselor available in order to get a student and help with this. And so a teacher could say, hey, I have this student, I'm worried about their safety, and we could get them. But if there was not an administrator or a counselor available, I want teachers to have the tools and the knowledge to be able to do this. So hopefully it'd be something that we could go over in a training and a staff meeting. So it explains the risk assessment guide. The risk assessment here is pretty standard. I mean, you can Google suicide risk assessment and find a lot of what I've put on here. And it's divided by risk and what to do depending on their risk level. Then the safety plan. I've been using the safety plan informally with students already this semester. Typically, every school counselor has some kind of safety plan where they do with their students, just using different templates that they found or have been given from other people or found online. So I tried to pull kind of the best from different forms that I'd seen and used in the past and put it there. So far, the response from students has been pretty great. It's very accessible for them. It's using terminology that they understand, and it explains it for them as well. Below that is a resource sheet, and it says that it needs to be included with the safety plan for the student and to the family. You know, these are resources that I have posted for students before, and they have available to them, or I give to students when they come in and see me, but I think it's important for parents to have them as well. There are a lot of places now, you know, we have a lot of hotlines to call, but now they have text lines for the students to text. So they seem to prefer that most of the time. And then suicide prevention steps for parents and guardians. You know, suicide is something that people often shy away from in conversation, and in training it's tiptoed around. Even in the professional setting, I mean, I've unfortunately been present to see a police officer do an informal suicide screening with a student, never said the word suicide. So there are a lot of myths around suicide that make people feel scared of it. And parents hear that and immediately panic and think, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with this. And so giving them a guide for, you know, here's what you can do. And here's how we can help. And here are the resources that you need. And then I think another, I hesitate to say the most important thing, but one of my big reasons for putting this together was the school reentry form. So right now it's a little discombobulated how we get our information about a student. So a parent could call and leave a message on my phone saying, hey, just wanted to let you know my student's been admitted to Springwoods. And then I have to email you know, the admins and Brendan, our registrar, and say, hey, have you heard anything about this student? And then if Brendan says no and the admins say no and the parent doesn't answer the phone, we have no way of knowing what's going on. And if we don't receive paperwork from the facility they're at, which that can sometimes be very delayed, or not at all, it got lost in the fax machine or what have you, then for a time, we don't know where students at or what's happening. And then when they get back to school, sometimes we don't even have a warning that they're back in the building. We don't have any information from the facility they were at about their risk level. We don't have any information from the parents about what's going on at home or what the plan is for them re-entering school, or if they're going to be in counseling. And so I have some parents that are very communicative and will tell us all these things and be very open, and others that the kids will disappear for a week and then show back up, and then we get paperwork from Springwoods. And so I really wanted to formalize it so we have a clear plan of what's going on, how does our school handle this, how do we communicate this with teachers and parents and everyone else, and how do we keep that kid safe when they're back? Because just because they were released from a facility does not mean that they are fully stable and fully safe. And I think that it's important that we know how we can keep them safe at school, and how teachers can be informed and know how to keep their kids safe at school. And I think it's important that we do this before something tragic and horrible happens, and we get it in place as soon as we can.
So I just want to comment, Taryn is a perfect example of professional, competent, and caring. And I just want to thank you, Taryn, for putting this information together. We had a kind of a near miss with this student not some time ago, and it was clear to us that we needed to put this kind of protocol together. And I'm so grateful that we have something that really helps to guide the district, teacher, staff, and administrators in what we need to do to keep students safe. So thank you for that so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is great work. It's something that's close to me. So I really appreciate you stepping up and doing this. This is great. The ADH guidelines for COVID, did we cover that previously or not?
No, we're good.
Okay, all right, that's what I thought. All right, well, in that case, we do need to go into executive session. So you should have received, board members, you should have received a link sometime around 4:15, 4:30 this afternoon for the new executive session. I sent that out with Vic's help. So we're going to go in executive session. So those of you that are not going to be there, you're free to go. Is when we come back, all we're going to do is adjourn. So if you would, if everybody would go to the executive session. Thank you so much for everybody that's been here. Appreciate you.
Tony, you need to go ahead and exit and start
Yep,
that.
I'm on my way now.
Up.